Hey, and welcome back to another podcast with me, Anonymous. It's amazing to see how many hits my last video had just since yesterday. Over 430 people have listened in, which is so cool because the comments that I'm also getting underneath and privately really show that people are listening, which is great. The more, the better, in my opinion. Not for an egotistical point of view, but literally just because a lot of people are saying they've never thought of things in the same way that I've been putting things forward, which is great because that's what we need to do. We need to do this crucial sharing of ideas and opinions and thoughts, which previously within the Jehovah's Witness organization we were simply forbidden to do. True discussion of the Bible, true discussion of doctrine when it comes to the Jehovah's Witnesses, true discussion of privately held thoughts and beliefs about other things in the world. Well, we all know that they're basically forbidden and taboo subjects that indicate that we are, faithless, apostate, blah, blah, blah. So it's really cool, actually, that people are willing to sort of listen in to my videos and listen and think and start looking at things from a different point of view and then commenting their ideas and thoughts as well, which is great. But today, I just want to talk because I tune into quite a few different XJW channels. XJW Critical Thinkers is one, and this really cool guy, and I've totally forgotten his name already, British guy, John Cedar, I think his name is. He puts in all different kind of videos, very well edited, much better than mine because I'm a newbie to all this stuff. But his videos are so good, and he's sort of putting up videos from the society and sort of critiquing them and going through them and saying, okay, what are we actually being shown here? What are they actually saying in these videos? Now, I have been fading away without even sort of realizing it from the Jehovah's Witness organization since I was probably about 16. And that's been a fair while ago now, thankfully. And even back then, it was hard to stomach certain talks. I used to hate any watchtower or article or anything about women because it was always patronizing and depressing, the way that women are talked about and talked down to and portrayed as either harlots or submissive namby-pamby wives and that kind of thing. And so even back then I found it very hard to sit through a meeting and feel good about it. And I never understood why people like my mother would say things like, oh, we always feel better after we go to the meeting. And if I said, I don't want to go today because I don't feel very well or I feel depressed or I'm in a bad mood, my mom would say, oh, but that's why we go to the meetings, to feel better. And I used to privately think, well, not so privately sometimes, but I used to think, I don't see how, because every time I go to the meeting, I end up feeling confused, offended, more depressed, and all these bad feelings. And it was kind of like a relief when they finally said, okay, brother so-and-so is going to do the final prayer. So it's been quite a while since I was sort of, really paying attention to things at the meetings. And then when it came to the assemblies, the district ones and the biannual small assemblies, I used to hate them. I'm sure a lot of people do if you still go, and did if you stopped going. Because, just on the fact that they lasted at least 2 days, the district ones lasted 3 days, and they were very hard to sit through. I'm not a very social person, and sometimes I get anxious and stuff when I'm in sort of big crowds, and it was super hard actually to be at assemblies where there were thousands and thousands of people crammed into a stadium or like a meeting hall or whatever. And people that you haven't seen in a million years will come up and try and talk to you and touch you and hug you and kind of grill you about your life. And for me, it was overwhelming. And that was even before the program started with its many lengthy symposiums and dramas and part 1, 2, and 3 of this different talk. It was just very hard to get through. So when I became an older teenager, my mother and father actually moved into a different congregation because of some hoo-ha that my dad had with the elders in their original one, the one I was born into. So they moved. My dad actually did a fly-by night and sort of announced to my mum after the the last meeting, which she didn't know was her last meeting there, that they're never going back there again, that they're actually moving to a different Kingdom Hall about 3 or 4 miles away in a different direction, which my mom was very upset about, but hey, he's the head of the house, so nothing she can do about that. So I continued going to my normal congregation because it was very close to my house and I didn't drive. So I thought, fine, I'll stay where I am. It's more convenient and better now, actually, because my father, who was a very, what's the word? I'm turning into a porky pig now with all these words. He was very controlling, let's put it that way. He was very controlling. He would spy on what you were, noting down in the meetings. He'd be very, very angry if you didn't answer up. He'd be sort of watching the clock thinking, come on, the meeting's nearly over and my daughters haven't answered up yet. Oh, they're doing very badly today. And so it was very much a, under the thumb feeling of being to meetings. There was a lot of pressure and a feeling of, resentment, really. So when they left, I felt like I had more freedom now just to be a crappy witness without being sort of spied on or noticed by my father in particular. So when it came to assemblies, I gradually phased out assemblies. And I did it by, if there were a 3-day convention or a 2-day convention, I would attend 1 day. And then the second day, I would say, I'm too tired, blah, 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 I'm not going to go today. But I'll catch up online, which of course I never did. And then, you see, the thing is, with not going to assemblies all this time and not reading the material that's been assigned to people that we're supposed to read for, to catch up with meetings, for personal study, blah, blah, blah. I didn't read any of that stuff. I never read the new magazines when they came out, even when I placed them on a ministry, because I was like, okay, what's this one about? Okay, the end of the world again. Okay, fine. Do you believe that the end of the world is nigh? No? Okay, well, read this magazine and it will tell you why. Goodbye. Just like that. It was like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. Just quickly fired out, and here's the magazine. Now I can count it on my report. And my dad won't box my ears for not placing enough. But the thing is, what I've come to notice quite horribly, honestly, in the last couple of weeks, when I've been sort of more intensively researching like these XJW videos and things, especially John Cedar's, and I watched the clips back from videos that he has sort of pilfered from the sites, and I'm watching these clips, and I tell you, it is absolutely sickening. And I'm watching this stuff like, no, this can't be from the Jehovah's Witnesses site. This is absolute bullshit. Sorry, bullspit. I mean, what on earth are they broadcasting? And it makes me actually afraid, because I'm watching these horrendous videos. They're either horribly cheesy, they look like they're off some kind of second-rate TV channel in America that kind of sells, I don't know, vacuum cleaners and miracle creams in between, episodes or whatever. And it's like clap nonsense, like from a gospel church. It's cheesy musical videos with, sort of like middle-aged witnesses playing banjos and things. And I'm watching this nonsense like, what? And then on the flip side, you have the horrendous, openly hostile, kind of scary videos about Remember the Wife of Lot and the anti-gay video. And then there's like the instructional videos from society, which have been shown at conventions and things, featuring various brothers, including members of the governing body and district overseer speakers, doing sort of like almost like public announcement talks and safety talks about child abuse, where the one brother actually says 2 things about the child abuse thing, apart from they abhor it, which of course they're going to say to cover their ample arses. But first of all, he says that the parents are first line of defense and that the responsibility to prevent your children from being abused rests with the parents. Now, I find that completely sickening, because at the same time, they tell parents that the Kingdom Hall is a safe place, that this is a haven, that Jehovah's Witnesses are one global family and a brotherhood, that people in the world are dangerous, but people in the truth are safe, that this is sort of like preparation for the new world. So parents are sort of being indoctrinated that the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses is perfectly safe, that this is sort of like a creche where the kids can run around free and go to the bathroom on their own and do what they want because everyone's a family. I mean, when you have a family get-together, like I don't know, like a wedding or just a do at your house with, a bunch of family here, you don't worry about your little Tammy or Tyler running around and going into the kitchen or going to the bathroom, do you? You don't care because it's your house and you know everybody and you trust people and you assume that the love between family is enough to protect children. I mean, okay, that's not always the case. We know that. There's always a creepy uncle or something. But in general, that's the feeling of family. That's what you expect from family. And the Jehovah's Witnesses kind of apply that natural feeling in an unnatural way towards the congregation, that we are to view strangers whom we've never met at assemblies and different kingdom halls as friends and family. That these people are our brothers and our sisters. Now that's family, brothers and sisters. And we are supposed to let our children basically, sort of enjoy this spiritual feast and this spiritual atmosphere, this spiritual paradise. And then the governing body have the cheek to then put the responsibility on parents to say, well, you're the first line of defense. And yet they encourage parents to let the children be free. And then the second thing, which is even worse, they say, is that have you taught your children how to dress modestly? Have you taught your children what sexual behavior is appropriate towards God or not? Now, what the hell does that mean? The governing body have put the responsibility of child abuse upon parents and the victims. They're saying that if your child knew what Jehovah likes when it comes to sex and know what he does not like, and if your child knew how to dress, for God's sake, how are children dressing inappropriately? Are little boys putting on fishnet tights and holy t-shirts? Are little girls putting on bras and high heels and walking around the Kingdom Hall? Because you know what? That's just complete nonsense. That is complete nonsense. Children do not dress immodestly. And besides, in my opinion, there is no sort of immodest dress for children. Because if you're looking at kids with the view that what they're wearing is immodest or sexual, there's something fucking wrong with you. Let me just put it that way. There is something wrong with you if you can look at a child and view them as immoral or seductive or something. Because that is just weird and wrong and perverted. That's like putting a bra on a dog and going, oh, this dog is turning me on. What? If you think that, then you need to tie a rock around your feet and jump into the Thames or something, because there's something wrong with you. And yet the governing body are putting out a talk saying that little children should be responsible for their own sexual crimes, crimes that are against them, because they dressed immodestly or because they do not know what an appropriate level of affection is. That is something they said in that talk, an appropriate level of affection. What the hell does that mean? Does that mean if a 5-year-old child gives an elder a hug, which they are encouraged to do because this elder is their spiritual brother, then that means the brother, if he's a pervert, takes that in the wrong way, that it's the child's fault because little Tammy or Tyler should have known that hugging an elder is a seductive sexual act. It is complete nonsense. And the thing is, I'm watching these videos, and these videos, it's a backlog from years back, and I'm watching them with my mouth open and my eyes just like, I swear to God or to Darwin or somebody, what is going on? And the thing that frightens me the most about these videos that I'm sort of becoming aware of now is that people like my mother, my grandmothers, people I actually respected in the congregations, the nice ones. I mean, you always get them. The nice, soft, fuzzy members of the congregation. They wouldn't hurt a fly. They just want to get into that new world and live with their vineyard and their lions and pandas. They don't mean any harm to anyone. And they would probably cry if they knew you were disfellowshipped or whatever because they're soft-hearted. But these people are actually watching these videos at the assemblies and for family worship and in private on their jw.org sites on their iPads and at the meetings, because when I was there, they actually broadcast some of these disgusting videos at the Kingdom Hall. And it was like, okay, cinema time, everybody sit down, pass around the jw.org stamped popcorn, and let's get on with this. And even with those videos, I was watching them like, what is this propaganda? Because there is no other word for it. It's propaganda. Okay, the other word is garbage, but it's garbage propaganda. That is what they are spewing to people and trying to get people to swallow. And the sad thing is, the nice, soft-hearted, fuzzy members of the congregation, your own mums and dads, your own spouses, your own children, whoever it is who's still there, are watching these videos and not thinking that anything is wrong. And if they are, they're doing an excellent job of concealing their doubts, because they are also taught not to doubt, not to question, not to think bad things about the organisation. that by doing these things, it shows that there's something wrong with them. They are spiritually weak, they are spiritually retarded, they are spiritually dead or backwards or something. And I'm wondering, as I'm watching these videos, what does my mother think of these? Because my mom is definitely a soft, fuzzy-hearted person, and she does not like nonsense. She's an intelligent person, and yet I'm watching these videos and thinking that this is utter bullspit. So what does she think? Because every time I've tried to mention anything about the organisation, about their blatant sexism nonsense, some of the racist things they've said, their bizarre attitudes towards random things, she acts as if it's either a lie or it's an apostate sort of deceivement from the internet, or it's just me having the wrong attitude. So when she watches these videos herself, maybe even in private, and she's free to think her own private thoughts, what does she think? What do any of them think? I mean, to be honest, in my old congregation, most of them weren't too bright anyway. They weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer. Most of them were as sharp as spoons, wooden spoons, because even talk to them about sort of doctrines that the witnesses teach, they were still sort of like on old thoughts. I remember asking one brother, I think he had about 2 brain cells floating around anyway, at the best of times, and we had a talk about the new thought on the generation, which is bizarre anyway, about the overlapping nonsense. And just as a test, and I'm not even joking, the moment the meeting was over, and don't bear in mind this was like an earth-shattering thought to everybody, and everyone was discussing it, I went up to that particular brother and I said, now tell me, what is the thought on the generation? And he immediately parroted the old thought, which 5 minutes ago had just been updated, but in his small brain he couldn't understand or comprehend what he'd just been taught. And it really concerned me. I thought, blimey, these people don't even know what they believe. They've just literally had a talk and everyone's talking about it right now, and this particular brother doesn't even know what he's been taught. And tomorrow on the field service, if somebody asks him that question, he'll tell them, inaccurate information from their point of view anyway. I mean, the whole lot of it is inaccurate from my point of view, but still, I mean, you must have some kind of standard. You must. So this podcast, this is just literally a rant about what I've just been watching with John Cedar's videos, because I haven't seen any of these videos myself before today. I'm watching these clips, I'm watching these nauseating music videos, and it's turning me off. And the thing is, people I know are sort of concerned that one day I may be tempted to go back into the cult, because that is a common reaction, sadly, from people who leave high control religions or even countries or whatever. It's like with abusive relationships. You get, sadly, women in particular who are abused by their spouses, their partners or whoever, and they're beaten, they're raped, they're isolated, they have no money, and in the end they had the strength to break away. Now that's a big deal, and they move away, they get accommodation, they start to rebuild their life slowly, they start to get stronger again, and then all of a sudden they go back. And their friends and family who care are baffled and think, why on earth did she go back to that pig? But the sad fact is, sometimes when you are brainwashed by somebody and they control your life to such a massive extent, to leave is a very big shift in your life. And sometimes you get tired and you feel like you just want to go back to the way things were because it's easier just to go with the flow. It's hard to swim against the current. And a lot of people say that to me, oh, do you ever think you'll go back? I'm afraid that one day, if you go back to a Kingham Hall, you'll be sucked back into it. Don't talk to the ones on the trolleys because you may get stuck back in. Well, if I have to go back to a meeting and watch one of these nauseating Mormon-like videos, I tell you, I won't last 5 minutes. And I can't understand how any of them last 5 minutes in these organizations. And I think, honestly, that it comes down quite simply to identity. As I've mentioned before, the Jehovah's Witness organization and their religion, it's not merely just a religion. It's not something that they sort of refer to once in a while and then sort of live their lives and don't think about it. Jehovah's Witnesses think about Jehovah and the organization every single day. From the moment they wake up to when they go to bed at night, they think about Jehovah and the organization at some point during that day. They read the daily text and comments. Why do you think those kind of books are designed? It's to remind people every single day that they are a Jehovah's Witness. And when it comes to how seriously they view their religion, it's now like a lifestyle. I mean, someone commented on my videos yesterday, something that I've seen myself many times. Somebody commented and said that she knew of an elderly witness woman that when she used to answer the phone, she'd say, "I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses." And it was the first thing she said before her name or anything. And I know plenty of witnesses, especially the older ones, who do exactly the same thing. We've even had talks where they say about, be proud to be a Jehovah's Witness, and they've had old people put their hands up and say, "Oh, when I get picked up by a taxi man, or when I, answer the phone, or when the post person comes to the door, I always say I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses when they ask me who I am." It's the same with little school children. I've heard that myself as well. When they've done, especially at my hall, which had quite a few youngsters in it, they did talks about identity and being proud to be a Jehovah's Witness. They'd interview some of these young sproglets and say things like, so when you're at school, do you witness to others? And they would say, yes. When I went to a new school and they made me stand up in front of everybody and introduce myself, the first thing I said was, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Or I'm Alex and I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm Charlie and I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's the first thing they declare about themselves. It's the only thing they really think is important. It's the essence of their entire identity. And you see, it's easy to be swallowed up by that because the Jehovah's Witnesses discourage having a career. So, I mean, let's face it, how do human beings identify themselves? Well, your race is one of them. You'll say, I'm Portuguese, I'm Irish, which I am, I'm English, I'm American, I'm Canadian, I'm Swedish, I'm Norwegian, blah, 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 blah. And people identify themselves by their race. They'll also say, I'm a man or I'm a woman, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. So your gender or your sexuality or whatever, you identify yourself by that. And then there's things like your career. I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I work in a restaurant, I work in a cafe, I'm blah, 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 I'm a teacher. And people identify themselves by that. I mean, when you meet somebody, one of the first things you ask is, what's your name? And then you say where you're from, and then you say what you do. And people identify each other by those three things. Hi, my name is Harpreet, I'm from Mumbai, and I am a costume designer. Those three things say a lot about a person just off the cuff, But with Jehovah's Witnesses, they are encouraged not to have a career. So you can't identify yourself by, oh, I'm a teacher or I'm a lawyer, because by doing that, they sort of act like, oh, you're having pride in your career, which is discouraged. So our careers aren't important to us, so we don't care about such things. And then when it comes to your race, well, you're not allowed to be patriotic either. And so we're all just one race as Jehovah's Witnesses, and we're a global family, so who cares about where you're from anyway? Unless it's to do with which congregation you're from. So people often actually say that in the witnesses. Oh, I'm from the, the Tipton congregation. I'm from the London West congregation. I'm from the Poole congregation. I'm from the New York Central Park 5 congregation, blah, blah, blah. And that's sort of how they identify themselves. So everything they say, really, is oriented around the truth. Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm Tammy. I'm from the Edinburgh congregation. And, I'm a pioneer. And those three things, there you go, that's how they identify themselves. A Jehovah's Witness, their status within the witnesses and which congregation they're from. So when it comes to people like the elderly especially, who have no sort of chance for career or anything anyway, let's face it, they have nothing going on in their lives. Many of them, their family aren't Jehovah's Witnesses themselves, and they are required to sort of shun their ex or non-JW family members, or the members themselves sort of to keep their distance because they're like, old granny's a bit odd, she's with a cult, blah, 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 leave her alone kind of thing. And these elderly ones especially have nothing going on in their lives. They have no hobbies to speak of. They're not really allowed to get involved with clubs. They can't go to the old folks' home to do anything like that. I mean, ordinary activities that older ones do, well, they're not really encouraged to do. Especially if their husbands or wives have passed on and they're now like alone. There's not much really going on for them in their lives. And the thing is, when it comes to the JW cult, they sort of act like you won't need anything more than us. And these older ones, they throw themselves into it. Their whole lives revolve around that, and they're so proud. It's almost like they feel like they're at university, or they are like a doctor or a lawyer, and they are obsessed only with Jehovah's Witness nonsense. It's all about studying. It's all about answering up. It's all about research. It's all about preparing talks. It's all about going on the ministry, and that's all they have in their life. And the highlight of the year is when the circuit overseer comes, because then they can fight for who has him and his wife for dinner. And it's a bit sad. And this is the kind of thing I'm thinking about when it comes to them watching these horrific videos, and they're so rude and homophobic and sexist and scaremongering and all this nonsense. I think even if they have doubts, even if they watch it and think, well, that's a bit harsh, or that doesn't seem very fair, or that doesn't feel like the truth as I know it, this feels more like a churchy thing now with these clap songs and all this nonsense, do they really want to give it up? Their small doubts and fears and feelings of nausea mean nothing when it comes to the glory of being a Jehovah's Witness, the career that they have. It's their whole life. And that's why it's so destroying, honestly, when you are disfellowshipped, even if you don't even really want to be a witness anymore, even if you disagree with them and think that they're nonsense. Because the thing is, it's part of your identity. Now you have to, it feels like, well, it did for me anyway, and I know for a lot of people it feels the same way. You feel like you have to find out who you are. You have to realise that you're no longer Jehovah's Witness. So who am I? What am I? What is my potential? What do I even like? What do I want to do with all my spare time now? And a lot of people feel a bit lost and they flounder, and a lot of them go to different churches because they want something to replace the routine of spirituality and obsession with the Bible and these kind of familiar things. So if you are disfellowshipped, or you're due for the high jump soon, or you're thinking about disassociating yourself, or you want to fade, or anything like that, think to yourself, who are you really? What kind of things do you like to do? Be aware that now you're allowed to do anything. You can go and join a sports club if you want. You can be an actress or an actor or a writer or whatever you want to be, a lawyer, doctor, because now you're allowed to go to university. Now you're allowed to actually do something with your brain and your abilities. And it's such a strange, overwhelming feeling. It is for me anyway. All these possibilities suddenly open up, and you think, wow, I could be anything. And before, they said to me I could be anything, so I became a pioneer. Wow. Until I took an arrow to the knee, and now I'm just a ministerial servant because I can't go anywhere and knock doors now. But you may laugh, and I hope that you do, because I try to put some humour into this. But honestly, these videos are just pass me the sick bucket, because they are absolutely nauseating. I swear, I was on a ride once at a fairground. It was called the hammer throw or something, where you sit in a ride that was shaped like an upside down hammer, and you sit sort of in the head of it, and it swings you around and around and around until finally you're standing totally upside down, high above the floor, and then it swings you back to the ground again. And the sickness I feel when I watch these videos is a lot more than the feeling I got when I was on that ride. And back then, when I was about 6, I think I'd eaten about 20 donuts as well, so I did feel a bit sick. But watching these videos are actually worse. They're absolutely gross. And I've seen pictures on the internet as well, comparing the setups of the Jehovah's Witnesses to things like the Mormons and the Scientologists in particular. And it is actually concerning how almost identical they are. I think it was Patterson Buildings, or maybe the new ones at Walkhill now. They compared an aerial photograph of the entire complex, and they compared it to the Scientology buildings. And you know what? They look practically identical. And it was scary. And okay, you may say, well, who cares? They're just buildings. But this is the thing. The Jehovah's Witnesses declare over and over again, we are no part of this world. We do not follow after the crowd. We don't want to be like other religions. We don't wear, like priestly outfits or uniforms. We don't use incense or images. We don't want to be anything like churches at all. Even the Kingdom Halls are built just as sort of like generic buildings. Most of them don't even have windows, which I always found quite claustrophobic. But anyways, their setup is very, very similar or almost identical to other cult-like religions. In fact, their TV setup, where they do the broadcasts, was practically identical to the Mormons or the Scientologists, one or the other. And their nauseating music videos, where they all sit around and play banjos and the triangle and sing these weird songs, was absolutely, almost completely identical to the Mormon videos of Mormon weirdos doing the same things in their dungarees and breeches and baggy jumpers, playing the banjos and the fiddles and singing these weird chanting religious mantra songs. And the phrases they sing are ones that have been parroted and repeated so many times over the last decades, 50 years, 100 years, the same nonsense like upholding Jehovah's sovereignty and everlasting loyalty and all these kind of phrases and buzzwords that they use constantly. And it just sounds so fake and hollow. And I think the last video I saw, it looked like some kind of Mexican dude singing badly, and there was all these kind of middle-aged, frumpy looking witnesses playing banjos and things. And then you have an audience which is very, very obviously engineered to be multinational. So on the front row you had an Indian woman in a sari, next to a black guy, next to a Chinese woman, and it was just okay, they're really putting an effort in now to present themselves as these squeaky clean multinational organizations, and it's all by chance. The Indian sister just happened to sit by a West African brother, who just happened to sit by a Chinese woman, who just happened to sit next to another Mexican person. And it's wow, aren't we, completely, multinational and all mixed up together, and we didn't even notice? Wow. Yes, they noticed. It's called engineering, it's called filming, where someone is in charge of the room and will say, you sit here, sister, you sit there, brother, and we have a nice front. So when we begin to film, we put out a clear message, and it's just propaganda. It's totally propaganda. And yet I'm watching these videos, and it is one of these, upholding Jehovah's sovereignty, and we are his loyal witnesses, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just watching it what on earth is this claptrap? It's the same nonsense repeated over and over again. And it really does feel like a cult. And I'm watching it just this just doesn't feel even as the truth felt to me, even 10 years ago. And all the times I was a teenager at the convention, it had more of a dignified, kind of stern feel to it. And it's funny because even my mom would say the same things about stuff from 10 years ago was more kind of light-hearted than the stuff she was brought up with. And it's becoming a parody of itself. I mean, I watched a Simpsons episode on a cult. And Homer Simpson joins a cult where they all worship this mysterious leader, and he promises that once they get enough money, he will build sort of a spaceship and they will all leave the Earth to go to some sort of paradise planet. And Homer, because he's a total buffoon, enropes the whole family into this cult, and they all sort of get, sucked into it until the end when they realize it's just a lie. And the way the Simpsons parody things, it's quite hilarious. And they do in that episode sort of a silly mantra song where they just praise the leader and they repeat kind of silly in-house phrases and things over and over again. And Homer Simpson is just he loses the few brain cells he has to the cult, and everything is about the cult. And he gets obsessed, and I think in that episode he's eating lima beans and starts to say, wow, this lima bean looks just like the leader. I'll put it over here with the other lima beans that look like the leader. And it makes you laugh because it does feel like a parody, it's extreme. And then I'm watching the Jehovah's Witness videos, and I'm just thinking, wow, if the Simpsons wanted to do a parody of this particular song, I'm not sure how they could make it more ridiculous, to be honest. Because it is practically level 10 of just stupidness that you could possibly imagine. These silly people singing, and it's the shots are so bad and the expressions are so sycophantic, and it's just terrible. But anyway, that's my rant over. I'm hoping that people are sort of watching these videos, even if it's just to inform yourself about what the Jehovah's Witnesses are being fed. Because especially if you have ones that you love who are still in the organisation that you hope to pluck out soon, it's really handy to know what the opposition are teaching. Because you can say something and you don't know that all these years they've been having these sort of educational videos drummed into their head, and what you're saying, they already have a million answers for it. Because with the Jehovah's Witnesses you will notice, and you will notice very well, especially if you were one or you've tried to argue with one, Jehovah's Witnesses have answers for everything. You could say to a Jehovah's Witness, the sky is blue, and the Jehovah's Witnesses will get out the Bible and show you 16 verses where the sky is pink, and they will tell you and swear blind that the sky is pink. And if you make them look with their own eyes, they'll say, "Oh, you're persecuting me, you're persecuting me." Satan blinds the minds of the unbelievers. You're just blind because you see that the sky is blue. I'm wise, so I can see past the obvious. And that's the thing. You can never really win with a Jehovah's Witness who is determined to dig their heels in and proclaim that what they know is true and what you know is just a lie or whatever. So it is handy to know what exactly they're being taught, because it makes it all the slightly easier anyway, or less difficult, shall we say, to sort of reason with them if possible, and try to get them to sort of look beyond what they've been taught. And sometimes it is literally just the obvious that they need to look at. Is this right or is it wrong? How does it look just on face value? What if it looks wrong? It probably is. So there you go. But anyways, thank you for listening. Please continue to add comments. Please continue to subscribe and watch my other ramblings. And, I don't mind if you disagree. I like it better if you agree. But at the same time, I love it when people disagree. Because it really actually triggers off better conversations and debate. And it sort of leads to more discussion, which is what, we all want as ex-members, or even current members if you are a Jehovah's Witness right now listening to this. I'm sure a lot of them, as I felt anyway, feel very frustrated when you have particular genuine concerns, questions. You start to think, is this real? Is this right? Is this the way it should be? I don't think so. And you find yourself shot down very quickly by other witnesses the moment you try to talk about any of these thoughts you have. And it can be very frustrating and depressing, It's like, I have to bottle all these feelings up. And that's not very fair. So keep talking, keep thinking, keep coming to your own conclusions, and ignore all the crap that Jehovah's Witnesses spew, like you shouldn't lean on your own understanding, man cannot direct his step. Because let's put it this way. The governing body is made up of imperfect men. If a man cannot direct his own step, how can a man direct the steps of over 8 million people? How can a man rely on his own understanding of the scriptures and then teach that to over 8 million people with the hope of bringing in more, and yet that is somehow okay, that's okay, but you can't do it? Please use your brains, people. Look at the obvious sometimes and think to yourself, what do they have to gain from making me, bottle up my feelings? What do they have to gain by shutting me up and stopping me from talking about these thoughts? And also, what do they have to lose if I do talk about my thoughts and feelings? And by even just thinking that, you can find the answer yourself, I'm sure. But yes, thank you for listening. Keep your ears and eyes open for more videos by me, and peace out.